the hay, all you sports fans out there in the Tubosphere. Welcome to One Man Sports Rant. I am your host, Will, the alternative ESPN Sports Thrill, talking about some interesting and cool factoid ESPN science with some of the biggest names. We covered them all last year. College football players, now going to be NFL. How will they be drafted based on this schematic that Sports Science did? Alright, so let's get to it. See, from our Pi Kappa Alpha House Sweethearts, UView Chapter Alpha Tau, giving you props. Alright, just a reminder, the OMSR is a show, has to be done this way, it's not my first choice, called the DMCA, never produced, put up a video, then you don't understand some of the difficulties to this, especially when you're piggybacking on some of these other networks. We give all the credit to ESPN, except to say this show is copyright to the OMSR. Brief video highlights courtesy to ESPN and the NFL. The OMSR does not own these video highlights, but does own all the other original content. The overall concept herein, thereof, therefore, most rights reserved. The biggest right, of course, belonging all of the video highlights we're able to bring in to the aforementioned parties. Alright, so stands to reason. Yeah, and we've all discussed this. What's the best way to put this out there without being in your face? I know that sounds like a misnomer. One man sports rant, we. There is a we involved in this project. We're all former college football or basketball players, and a few Marine Corps recon. So, you wouldn't say a flip comment to our face? I'm pretty sure that's the case. Don't do it from the safety of your computer. For a pro bono sports show, we're able to bring you quite a lot. Alright, enough said about that. So these dudes are looking pretty good, and this ESPN Sports Science, especially in this rendition, 2013, very cool. Split it up into 3 parts so as to give ESPN all the credit. Can't piggyback on, one network for too long, given any event, sporting or otherwise. The good ship sports clip lollipop on YouTube has sailed. In terms of, if you could put up an hour and get away with it, doesn't mean you should. We've been doing this since Generation 1. Alright, enough of the legalese. You see, Kim Pak, the mighty Kim Pak, our oracle to the sports gods, 21-4, after the Final Four. It's kind of cool. So, start asking him questions when the NBA playoffs start to come to a head. Who's going to win Game 6? Is so-and-so is going to be able to come back from 3-1? We'll see how that goes. Alright, so 3 parts coming up. Big names, Denard Robinson, Ogletree from Georgia, DJ Fluker, Alabama, yada yada, so forth and so on. Montee Ball from Wisconsin. I could go on and on and on. Just you check out all 3 parts. This is going to be the baseline show for all 3. So you'll know if you want to see all 3 from this point, whatever first point you see, when to fast forward to. I understand. This show's not meant to be everybody's cup of tea. It's meant to COA, which in singular form is CYA. No silly DUIs while you're out there celebrating whatever sport you prefer. Better days, more signature plays.
In the NFL, Michigan's Denard Shoelace Robinson. We know you're flat out fast.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you can just burn it up.
Yeah.
What we want to do is we want to see how fast are you in a stop and go pattern.
Let's do it.
After accelerating to 15 miles per hour in only 4 strides, Robinson decelerates to almost 0 in just 0.4 of a second. And after the catch, Robinson is able to get back up to more than 18 miles per hour, finishing in a total time of just 4.21 seconds. The fastest time we measured on this test this year. And as usual, Robinson performed with untied shoelaces, which might actually give him an advantage. Without ever relying on laced-up shoes for stabilization, Robinson has built up greater interior foot strength, which allows his feet to absorb more force when stopping. In our motion capture technology reveals that Robinson's running form is extremely efficient. Like a barefoot runner, Robinson relies on his midfoot to make contact with the ground. Compared to a heel strike, this puts a larger area in contact with the ground, dispersing and reducing impact body weight forces by up to half, allowing Robinson to literally be lighter on his feet. But even with light feet, Robinson proved he doesn't lack any power in our game changer test. Even at 198 pounds, he battles through 1,500 pounds of heavy bags, more than the combined weight of the starting linebackers for the Niners in just 2.04 seconds. That's more than a tenth of a second faster than the average time this year from linebackers through this gauntlet. And Robinson is at least 43 pounds lighter. When we consider him as a wide receiver, we rank Denard Robinson in the 82nd percentile, which puts him in class with Sports Science alum and Super Bowl MVP Santonio Holmes. The average NFL offensive lineman was 6'6" and weighed 313 pounds. Needless to say, to get past a human being that immense requires a special combination of size and quickness. That's why a lot of teams are interested in our next test subject, North Carolina's Sylvester Williams. At 6'3", 323 pounds, Sylvester Williams not only possesses the size of an NFL starter, but also the power. At 33 inches, the circumference of his thighs are nearly as thick as Darren Sproles' waist. These massive legs enable Williams to drive 325 pounds 10 yards in under 4 seconds, generating more than 2,000 watts of power. And he's without question one of the most powerful D linemen we tested this year. With this explosiveness, Williams can accelerate to a top speed of 16 miles an hour and cover 10 yards in just over 2 seconds. That's quicker than the average split times run by our 2013 class of running backs. And Williams outweighs every one of them by at least 110 pounds. Williams is able to do this because of his exceptional reaction time. He explodes off the line just 29/100ths of a second after the ball begins to move. This jump is more than 15/100ths of a second faster than the average player we tested this year. But quarterbacks in the NFL are trained to get a ball in less than 3 seconds. To get to our quarterback, Williams has to maneuver through 1,200 pounds of heavy bags to beat the clock. 3, 2, 1. Williams sheds our first heavy bag with nearly 900 pounds of force. He blows through the second layer of bags in just 9/10 of a second. With 4 yards to go, Williams takes 2 steps and accelerates to nearly 14 miles an hour, 85% of his top speed, and plows into our censored quarterback with more than 2,100 pounds of initial impact force. That's the hardest hit we measured this year. And Williams' total elapsed time, 2.61 seconds, nearly 4/10 of a second faster than a QB is trained to get off a pass. When taking into account this test, as well as several other position-specific tests, Sylvester Williams receives an overall score in the 88th percentile, and we consider his NFL potential comparable to 3-time Pro Bowler Darnell Dockett. As a tackle, Sylvester Williams is a force to be reckoned with going up the middle. And when we tested his ability to go around the edge, his speed was only 7/100ths of a second slower than the average time for our defensive ends. And Williams outweighs them all by at least 50 pounds. Well, he'll need that kind of quickness if he wants to make it in the NFL, because he'll be trying to stop guys like our next prospect, the NCAA career leader in touchdowns, Wisconsin running back Montee Ball. The first challenge for this ball carrier is our game changer test. Go. 3, 2, 1. Montee burst through our heavy bag car wash in just over 2 seconds, the second fastest time we recorded for running backs this year. He stiff arms the dummy with more than 1,500 pounds of force. And Montee finishes our test with an incredible display of power. With his 16.8-inch calves, nearly 5 inches larger than the circumference of a softball, Montee launches off the ground with about 1,400 pounds of force. This generates enough power to launch his 212-pound frame over a 5'9" high bar into the end zone. So to really put this powerful lower body to the test, we put Montee through our work test, where he has to drag 150 pounds of dead weight 10 yards.
If I move a weight a certain distance, I'm going to create a certain amount of work. When we start looking at how fast I do that, that's power. So some athletes are able to generate more power than others.
All told, during this test, Montee generates nearly 1,700 watts of power. And he reacts and covers 10 yards in just 2.79 seconds. That's the fastest time we recorded for any running back, linebacker, or tight end this year. When the data is processed, Montee Ball leaves the lab and heads for the draft with a score in the 87th percentile, slotting him higher than previous sports science subjects Ryan Matthews and LeGarrette Blount. One thing NFL teams won't have to worry about is Montee Ball's durability. During his senior season, he had more rushing attempts than any player in the NFL, even though his season was 2 games shorter. Another player who came through the lab and demonstrated the potential to be a big-time playmaker is one of the draft's top prospects and wide receiver, Clemson's DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins made a name for himself with some of the best hands in college football. Our body scanner measured those hands at roughly 9 by 10 inches, nearly 20% larger than the average male. This enables DeAndre to wrap his fingers around nearly half the circumference of the football at its widest point. To test these huge paws in action, we wired him up with science. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Nice. Sensors inside the gloves revealed the secret to DeAndre's soft hand. Roughly 75% of the impact force on each hand is absorbed by his thumb and middle finger. This allows the other fingers to act as stabilizers. And amazingly, DeAndre's palms absorb less than a single percent of the total force from the catch. One skill DeAndre practices is one-handed catches. His personal best is 33 in a row. So we challenged him to break his own record. That's 1. 30. 33. We're going to be here all night. 48. Oh! 48. Nice! 48 catches in a row seemed to barely faze DeAndre, so we upped the ante and added reaction time to the test. From 10 yards out, a ball fired at 30 miles an hour gives DeAndre less than 7/10 of a second to react, and every yard closer reduces that time even more. Now, it takes the same signals to reach the hand. But when DeAndre is only 2 yards away, the ball arrives in just 0.14 of a second. That means his window of opportunity to make the catch lasts roughly 15,000ths of a second. That's more than 20 times faster than the blink of an eye. But amazingly, DeAndre can still make the grab. With great speed and ridiculous hand-eye coordination, DeAndre Hopkins racks up an overall score in the 87th percentile. And we consider his NFL potential comparable to 2010 receiving yards leader Brandon Lloyd.